Ranganath. Can I start?
Yeah, 246. Your voice is a little weak.
Our nature is not only mistaken in will and ignorant, but Ranganath, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's right. Correct. Go ahead, read.
Yes. Our nature is not only mistaken in will and ignorant in knowledge, but weak in power. But the divine force is there and will lead us if we must in it, if we trust in it, and it will use our deficiencies and our powers for the divine purpose. If we fail in our immediate aim, it is because He has intended the failure. Often, our failure or ill result is the right road to a truer issue than an immediate and complete success would have put in our reach. If we suffer, it is because something in us has to be prepared for a rarer possibility of delight. If we stumble, it is to learn in the end the secret of a more perfect walking. Let us not be in too furious a haste to acquire even peace, purity, and perfection. Peace must be ours, but not the peace of an empty or devastated nature, or of slain or mutilated capacities incapable of unrest because we have made them incapable of intensity and fire and force. Purity must be our aim, but not the purity of a void or of a bleak and rigid coldness. Perfection is demanded of us, but not the perfection that can exist only by confining its scopes within narrow limits or putting an arbitrary full stop to the ever self extending scroll of the infinite. Our object is to change into the divine nature, but the divine nature is not a mental or moral, but a spiritual condition, difficult to achieve, difficult even to conceive by our intelligence. The master of our work and our yoga knows the thing to be done, and we must allow him to do it in us by his own means and in his own manner.
So this paragraph is to look at all the negative things in your life in a positive manner. That's what he's saying. If you fail, there's a reason. If you don't succeed, there's a reason. If you suffer, there is a reason. So see behind the surface and find out why it is like that. And then you will see that actually it's a blessing. All those things which seem to be negative, okay, failure, suffering, okay, all these things, they are actually halfway marks. And that's why you have to see them in a positive spirit. That's basically what Srimad is saying. Okay? Because the master, maybe all these things don't apply in other yogas, but in the yoga of integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo, you have to have perfection which is of a higher nature than those of other yogas. So naturally, it takes longer time and it also takes a more more effort, more effort. That's what he's saying basically. So we'll go through each one and see what he's saying. Our nature, human nature, is not only mistaken in will and ignorant in knowledge, but weak in power. So if you are weak in power, how can you succeed? It depends on what you're trying to do. But you are trying in the integral yoga, you are trying at a very high level you are aiming. So if you are aiming at a very high level, the possibility of immediate success is very little. Okay? So that's what Srimad is pointing out. In other yogas, even a small experience is very satisfying, but not in the integral yoga. That's what Srimad is pointing out. Our nature is not only mistaken in will and ignorant in knowledge, but weak in power. But the divine force is there. So if you think that you are doing everything, then you are mistaken. Because in the integral yoga, you can't do anything. You have to leave it to the divine and you have to surrender to it. That's the whole life. But the divine force is there and will lead us if we trust in it. If we trust in it, is the question of faith. Okay? You must have total faith. But the divine force is there and will lead us if we trust in it, and it will use our deficiencies and our powers for the divine purpose. So the divine uses even the defects that we have. In other words, he uses our lack of power also. Okay, he uses. How does he use that? By refusing to give you immediate success. Okay? Immediate success, if you have, then the problem is that it may be a success which is full of defects. It may be a partial success. And if partial success is there, human nature is such that you are likely to be very satisfied. But in the integral yoga, a halfway mark is not advised. You have to go to the full. So that is why failure is more likely in the integral yoga than in the other yogas. That's what Swami is saying. If we fail in our immediate aim, it is because he has intended the failure. Don't be so easily satisfied with a partial success. If we fail in our immediate aim, it is because he has intended the failure. Often, our failure or ill result is a right road to a truer issue than an immediate and complete success would have put in our reach. So, in the other yogas, even if you have partial success, you are happy, okay? Because it's so, compared to what you were earlier, it is something fantastic, so you are satisfied. But Shraddha's yoga is not like that. You have to have much more. In fact, if you remember, Shraddha's yoga starts with the other's end. So if you keep that in mind, this whole paragraph you will understand very easily. Okay? A truer than an immediate and complete success would have put it down. If we suffer, but he's saying interesting words, he's saying a truer issue than an immediate and complete success. So complete success, you may feel, what is wrong with complete success? But complete success at your lower level. Okay? So that if you understand, then you, at a lower level, I am not aiming very high and I can succeed, and that success is partial. It is complete at my level. Okay? That's why giving the word complete success. Okay? So now he goes to suffering. If we suffer, it is because something in us has to be prepared for a rarer possibility of delight. Very often this is what happens. In the integral yoga, you need to purify yourself. And when you purify yourself, all these defects that are there inside you, they come out. And they come out normally in the body. sorry. They come out in the body, and that becomes a problem, a health problem. So you must not be disturbed very easily by that. Okay? That's exactly what he's saying. If we suffer, it is because something in us has to be prepared for a rarer possibility of delight. If we stumble, if we don't succeed, if we stumble, it is to learn in the end the secret of a more perfect walking. Let us not be in too furious a haste to acquire even peace, purity, and perfection. We should not be a halfway mark. That's what I mean. Peace must be ours, but not the peace of an empty or devastated nature, or of slain or mutilated capacities, incapable of unrest, because they have made them incapable of intensity and fire and force. So, a halfway effort is not what Srivdo advises. He wants a full power, and therefore you have to keep striving until your so-called force, which is normally weak, becomes much stronger than what it was earlier. That's the reason why failure is imposed on you by the master of the work. This is the chapter is the master of the work. So what he is doing only for you. Okay? Purity must be our aim. but not the purity of a void, okay, or a bleak and rigid coldness. Now, what do you mean by this? The purity of a void is a Brahmic consciousness. Okay? The purity of a void means to say neither there is pain nor there is pleasure. So it's a purity of a void. What does Shiva want? He wants a purity with fullness. In other words, you have to go to the third level, and there all that was earlier unpleasant to you now becomes pleasant. That's what he means by purity of fullness. Okay, not a purity of a void. The purity of a void is the Brahmic consciousness, which people are very happy to reach. Okay, all the other yogas, they reach the purity of a void. They are completely free from suffering and pleasure also in the beginning. Okay, that's why Shiva also calls it a negative liberation. The negative liberation is Brahmic consciousness. You are absolutely untouched by anything. So it's not, it's negative according to Shiva. So if you go to a higher level, that negativity becomes full. In fact, you start enjoying everything. There is no suffering at all, but you start enjoying everything. That's what I mean by purity of a void. Okay? I hope it is clear. Okay? Of a bleak and rigid coldness. When you are in the Brahmic consciousness, it is a coldness because there is no, remember, even emotion is not hitting you. Even emotion is not coming to you because you are completely devoid of connection with the body mind life. And when you are devoid of connection with the body mind life, nothing is coming up to you. So it's a coldness. But Shiva wants a warmth. He wants a enjoyment, and he wants a not a neutral state, but a positive state of enjoyment and ananda. Okay, that's what he means by coldness. So very clear. Purity of void or a bleak and rigid coldness is the Brahmic consciousness, the Nirvana consciousness. You can call it self, you can call it Atman, you can call it Brahmic consciousness, you can call it whatever you want. It's a wonderful state to be in. But Sriyanga wants even more. Yes. Perfection is demanded of us, but not the perfection that can exist only by confining its scope within narrow limits or putting an arbitrary full stop to the ever self-extending scroll of the infinite. Now, what does he mean by this? When you read the Brahmic consciousness, the soul is perfect, but the body-mind life remains imperfect. So Srivna wants even that to be perfected. And then the scroll, self-extend means scroll. The perfection that you get at level 2, he wants you to extend that perfection to level 1. Okay? Level 1 in the body-mind life. Even when you are in the body-mind life, you should not be affected by anything. In fact, he goes one step further, but that's later on. That even the body-mind life will become divine. But that is not being discussed here. That comes later on. Okay? So it's very clear, na? So arbitrary full stop is stopping at the spiritual plane of consciousness. It's an arbitrary full stop. You need not do that. You can go even beyond that. So that's why Swami is using the word arbitrary full stop. Ever self-extending soul of the infinite, extend your perfection in the second level of the spiritual planes to the lower planes. Body-mind life also must become perfect. And what is the perfection of body-mind life? The body will be absolutely healthy without any disease. Okay, which is possible. The Hatha Yogins do that. Then, what about the fulfillment of the vital? Your enjoyment will be absolutely pure and for everything without desire. Okay, that is the fulfillment of the vital. And what about the fulfillment of the mind? It's an instrument for knowledge only, not half knowledge. No ignorance at all. Okay? That's what Shiva means. He's using different words, but it means the same thing. Our object, when he's saying our object, he's talking very clearly of the integral yoga, not any other yoga. Our object is to change into a divine nature. But the divine nature is not a mental or moral or but a spiritual condition, difficult to achieve, difficult even to conceive by our intelligence. The master of our work and our yoga knows the thing to be done, and we must allow him to do it in us by his own means and his own manner. We should not insist on what we think is success and what we think is not. That requires obviously a huge faith and a tremendous 100% surrender, which is not easy. That's the reason why Sri Guru says the other yogas are much easier than the integral yoga. But the integral yoga is therefore not for everybody. But if you are inclined towards what's in the and you are attracted by what he's saying, naturally you will follow it, but you must be patient. Don't expect immediate results. Small results you will get. So many people in the ashram, okay, got so many experiences, but that's not enough. Is what said, let's say. Clear? Okay. We go to the next plan. The movement of the ignorance. Harika is there, I see today, and she is not very frequent, but if she has a text, she can read.
Yeah, I have the text, Ranganath.
Okay, if you have the text, you can read.
The movement of the ignorance is egoistic at its core. And nothing is more difficult for us than to get rid of egoism while yet we admit personality and adhere to action in the half light and half force of our unfinished nature. It is easier to starve the ego by renouncing the impulse to act, or to kill it by cutting away from us all movement of personality. It is easier to exalt it into self-forgetfulness, immersed in a trance of peace or in an ecstasy of divine love. But a more difficult problem is to liberate the true person and attain to a divine manhood, which shall be the pure vessel of a divine force and the perfect instrument of a divine action. Step after step that has to be firmly taken. Difficulty after difficulty has to be entirely experienced and entirely mastered. Only the divine wisdom and power can do this for us, and it will do all if we yield to it in an entire faith and follow and assent to its workings with a constant courage and patience.
So, very interesting what he's saying, and it almost sounds strange. Okay, difficulty after difficulty has to be entirely experienced. So he's advising you to experience all the difficulties. Why? Because if you experience the difficulty, then you know what the problem is and you are likely to conquer it. So others' difficulties, he doesn't want a halfway mark. He says that afterwards. You can see he is talking about the halfway mark. The halfway mark is the Brahmic consciousness. Okay? The self going there. Your soul is free, but not the body mind life. So he wants you to go even beyond that. Now it's not a very big para, it's a very small para. So we'll start looking at each sentence. Okay. Every word of Sri Aurobindo has got hidden meanings. So we'll bring that out. The movement of the ignorance is egoistic at its core. So of the ignorance, where is the ignorance? At level 1. At our level, our normal level, the ignorance is always egoistic because the sense of separation from others is real. So when your sense of separation from others is real, that is the ego and that is ignorance. You are not seeing the oneness, you are seeing the separations, you are seeing the division. So the movement of the ignorance is egoistic at its core. Okay? Human nature is full of ego and ignorance. And nothing is more difficult for us than to get rid of egoism, while yet we admit personality and adhere to action in the half light and half force of our unfinished nature. So, which is unfinished nature? Your body, mind, life is not transformed. Okay? Then he's saying, he's using different words, but you have to understand what he's saying. Very difficult for us to get rid of egoism when, while yet we admit personality and adhere to action in the half life. So what is personality? I've told you very often, personality with a P cap, P lowercase means your body, mind, life. So if you are admitting body, mind, life, in other words, you are identified with your body, mind, life. So long as you are identified with your body, mind, life, egoism is absolutely impossible to dislodge. Okay, that's what it's saying. And adhere to action. You are doing action and you are thinking that my personality is doing the action. The language is a little difficult to understand, but if you go behind the words, you see very clearly what he's saying. Okay? Adhere to action in the half light and half force of our unfinished nature. But when you go to the Brahmic consciousness, you are not acting at all. Okay? You are not acting. The acting is left to the body, mind, life, and that's the unfinished nature. Okay? So it is easier to starve the ego by renouncing the impulse to act or to kill it by cutting away from us all movement of personality. Movement of personality, thoughts in the mind, emotions in the vital, and action in the physical. Movement of personality. Personality in body, mind, life. So he's saying it is easier to starve the ego by renouncing the impulse to act. When can you do that? You can do that when you go to the Brahmic consciousness. You become static, your consciousness has entered a place where it is static, and you are not acting anymore. Then if you are not acting anymore, ego disappears for you. In the Brahmic consciousness, the soul is completely devoid of desire and ego. Okay? There is no egoism in the soul when it's at the level 2 of the Brahmic consciousness. It is easy then to starve the ego by renouncing the impulse factor. You can't do that when you are identified with the body, mind, life. Or to kill it by cutting away from us all movement of personality. That's what the Jnana Yoga and the Bhakti Yoga do. They don't pay any attention to the body, mind, life at all. I'm concentrating only on my soul. Okay? So you kill it. It's easier to kill it by cutting away from us all movement of personality. It is easier to exalt it into self-forgetfulness, immersed in a trance of peace or an ecstasy of divine love. Now again, very clearly, trance of peace is Brahmic consciousness. Ecstasy of divine love is a psychic. Okay? So in this way, you can get rid of your personality and not pay any attention to it. But it will remain imperfect. But you're not bothered. That's a half the mark that he's talking about. Okay? But our more difficult problem, which is the problem of the integral yoga, but our more difficult problem is to liberate the true person and attain to a divine manhood, which shall be the pure vessel of a divine force and a perfect instrument of divine action. So, which is this true person? The true person, you have to go right up to the third level. If you go to a third person, the true person, that's the Ishvara or the Purushottama. So if you go up to that point, then even your action can be changed. Okay? Otherwise, you can't change it. In fact, at level 2, you are not acting at all. You feel yourself to be immutable and immobile. Okay? But if you want to act in the physical world with a new consciousness, then you have to go higher, not come down. That's the funny part. Because if you come down into your body, mind, life, the old nature comes back, egoism will come back, all your defects will come back. But if you go higher up, then you get the capacity of immunity from ignorance and ego. Then you can come down. Okay? So that's what she said. Yeah, tell me.
I
Yes.
have two questions. First is, it is those two second steps. It is easier to starve the ego by renouncing the impulse to act or to kill it by cutting away. This one you have told that this is Jnana Yoga, and it is easier to exalt it into self-forgetfulness, immersed in a trance of peace and an ecstasy of divine love. Is it Bhakti Yoga, Dada?
Yes.
Okay.
This actually comes only through Bhakti Yoga, yes.
Okay. The second question is, Dada, is to liberate the true person, and it is capital P. Please elaborate a little bit, Dada.
Yes. Yeah. The true person is absolutely at the third level. Okay? The true person is a peacock, that's your soul, but the soul at the midway point, it doesn't have any power. So when he says true person, you have to go right up to the Ishvara level, the third level, where you get the power also to change your body mind life. More mind and life, not the body so much. The body change can come in a certain way, but it's not the supramental body. Okay, it's a normal body only, but you have some power to change it. It acquires capacities of good health, longevity, and so many things. In India, there are many people who live a very disciplined life and they live up to 110, 120. The internet is full of all these cases. Even the pictures are there. Many people. Okay? Even 120, 130 they live. So it's possible to even bring that down into the body, but it is not the supramental body. It's a normal body. So that's what Shri is pointing out. So you are right. In a trance of peace is the Brahmic consciousness, Jnana Yoga path. But it's not that Jnana Yoga path is absolutely necessary. If your nature is capable of doing that, you can do it in any other way also. Okay? But it normally means the Brahmic consciousness. Trance of peace is Brahmic consciousness. Ecstasy of divine love is the Bhakti Yoga path, which leads you to this psychic. Okay? Step after step has to be firmly taken. Firmly, without any hesitation, with full faith. Difficult, not easy. Difficulty after difficulty has to be entirely experienced and entirely mastered. Now that you may feel is strange. Okay, you have to meet the difficulty, not avoid it. Okay, you have to meet the difficulty, experience it, and then only you will know how to master it. And that is possible only. That is the aim in the interior yoga, not the other yogas. Okay. Only the divine wisdom and power can do this for us. You can't do it for yourself. Human nature is not capable of that. That's why surrender is absolutely essential. Only the divine wisdom and power can do this for us. And it will do all if we yield to it in an entire faith and follow and assent to its workings with a constant courage and patience. So, even when you fall ill, you must know that the body is being prepared. Even when you have failures in the vital, you know that it is being prepared. Okay, that's the whole thing. So this is what it is, and it has to. These things should not discourage you. All this is very easy to say, but it's very, 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 very difficult to do. But that's the reason why your faith has to be absolutely fixed and unswerving. There should be no hesitation at all, which is not easy. Therefore, full sincerity in the interior yoga is not possible in the beginning. But you must keep your faith and go on marching and not stop at the middle path. That's what Shri is pointing out. Okay? So, we have 10, 11 minutes more and we can read the next paragraph. So, we have read 2 paragraphs already. So, now who can read is Kiran, have you got the text with you?
Yes, Ranganath.
Can you read?
Yes, yes.
Okay. The first step on this long path.
Yes. The first step on this long path is to consecrate all our works as a sacrifice to the divine in us and in the world. This is an attitude of the mind and heart, not too difficult to initiate, but very difficult to make absolutely sincere and all-pervasive. The second step is to renounce attachment to the fruit of our works, the only true, inevitable, and utterly desirable fruit of sacrifice. The one thing needful is the divine presence and the divine consciousness and power in us. And if that is gained, all else will be added. This is a transformation of the egoistic will in our vital being, our desire soul and desire nature, and it is far more difficult than the other. The third step is to get rid of the central egoism and even the ego sense of the worker. That is the most difficult transformation of all, and it cannot be perfectly done if the two steps have not been taken. But these steps too cannot be completed unless the third comes into the crown into crown the movement and by the extinction of the egoism eradicates the very origin of desire. Only when the small ego sense is rooted out from the nature can the seeker know his true person that stands above as a portion and power of the divine and renounce all motive force other than the will of the divine Shakti.
Okay, so he has told you very difficult things. Now he's telling you what is the methodology, what is the process. The first step is to consecrate all your works as sacrifice. Whatever you do, your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions, turn them to the divine. You do it as a sacrifice to the divine, not for yourself. Normally, what we do is everything for ourselves. If I'm eating, I want to enjoy my food. If I'm going to buy new clothes, it is for myself. Okay, if I'm studying, it is for my own knowledge. So everything we are doing for ourselves. That has to be turned and you start doing everything only for the divine. And how to do that? Remembrance and offer. Those words. Remember and offer. Remember and offer. Whatever you are doing, remember and offer. That is step number 1. Okay. Then the second step, renounce the attachment for the fruit of our works. Nishkama karma. Okay. So first is the constant remembrance and offering. Second is the nishkama karma. Don't anticipate and eagerly wait for the results of your work. Leave it to the divine. Do the best you can and let him attend to the results. Okay? Don't you insist on it. And the third is the ego, to get rid of the ego. So these are the 3 ways. He says this very clearly. First is to do everything as sacrifice. And the way to start that is remembrance. Okay? Whatever you are doing, remember and associate the mother with whatever you are doing. Whatever you are doing, okay? I like to tell the children very much that if you are coming on your scooter, okay, from your house to knowledge, think that mother is your pillion rider. Okay? Go to that extent. Whatever you are doing, think that they are participating in your activity. That's a good way to remember. Okay. In fact, mother says that to Uda. Uda asked, Mother, I don't know what is integral yoga, how to do. So mother said, very simple. This Buddha himself has told. When you are doing anything, just remember me and give it to me. So for instance, she said that if you are eating, and Udar and his whole family used to have lunch with mother. Okay. Apart from others, there used to be also Pranabda, and they used to have a lunch with mother upstairs. So she told Udar, you think of me and offer the food to me. And then she said, after that you start eating. And if you do that, even the food will taste better, she said. So this is the first step. And the second step is, whatever you are doing, do it to the best of your capacity, but don't expect any result. Why? Because if there is an expectation of result, then you are already, there is a desire, it's a form of desire. So that you have to nishkama karma. You have to do that. And then finally, if you can do that, the egoism can be removed, but the ego doesn't mean to say that the egoism should be lost. You can continue with your egoistic activities until the other two are complete. No. Even the egoism also helps the first two movements. That's what Swami is pointing out. Okay? He's saying that is the most difficult transformation of all, and it cannot be perfectly done if the first 2 steps have not been taken. But these first steps too cannot be completed unless the third comes in to crown the movement and by extinction of egoism eradicates the very origin of desire. Only when the small ego sense is rooted out from the nature can the seeker know his true person. Okay? Hashem is now, he is known He is famous for not capitalizing. Okay? No, he is true person. He has put a lowercase p, but actually he means the uppercase, because he has used the word true. True person. Who is a true person? Your psychic being or yourself. But here he is saying stands above, therefore it is self. This true person stands above as a portion and power of the divine and renounce all motive power, motive force other than the will of the divine. Shakti. Surrender to the divine and let him do the work in you. Don't initiate any work at all. That's what he said. Okay? So, we have come to the end of a section. The next time we'll take up this section. So remember, in fact, we summarize the integral path. First of all, do everything as a sacrifice. And what is meant by sacrifice? Do it for the divine and not for yourself. You may find it funny in the beginning. How can you do anything for the divine? If I am offering my food, at least begin with that. Okay? Then after that, I am myself eating. The divine is not eating. So you may feel a little strange, but the first action itself, okay, will be the initiating point. After that, even while you are eating, you will feel that the divine is eating in you. That's a very interesting experience, and that's what happened with Ramakrishna. I just mentioned that because it's relevant here. Okay? So one day, people were watching him, what he is doing, and they were watching secretly. And he was in front of Kali's image, and there were eatables offered. Okay, that's our usual the Indian way. All the food is put in front of the divine, and it is offered to them before you eat it. Then they saw that Ramakrishna is saying to him, okay, to the mother, "Nay, Khabi." He is picking up a laddu and he's saying, "Nay, Khabi, will you eat?" Okay, eat. And then he started eating himself. Okay, so people are absolutely shocked beyond belief. What is he doing? He is giving it to the divine and eating it himself. The truth is that he had become the divine, and the divine was eating it through him. So that's exactly what will happen later on also. You will feel that the divine is eating in you. Okay? So that's the interesting part. That illustration of Ramakrishna helps us to understand this. Yes. Yes,
Sir,
tell me. Yeah.
Whatever in this paragraph, we have 3 points we have read, and
Yes.
the second one is the this is a transformation of the egoistic will in our vital being, our
No,
desire soul and
No, no.
desire nature.
The second one is a nishkama karma. The second one is a nishkama. First is the sacrifice, doing everything for the Lord. Second is a nishkama karma. Do the best you
But
can.
Here it is written like that the second step is to renounce attachment to the fruit of our work for the only true, inevitable, and utterly desirable fruit of sacrifice. The one thing needful is the divine presence and the divine consciousness and power in us, and if that is gained, all else will be added. This is a transformation of the egoistic will in our vital being, our desire soul, and the desire nature. And it is far more difficult than the other. It is written in the second one.
Yes, I understand. But you have to see, don't forget the first words. They renounce attachment to the fruit of our works. What does that mean? You are paying attention to the second, third sentence in that second step, but you are not seeing sufficiently the first one. Renounce attachment to the fruit of our works. That's a nishkama karma. And when you do that, the result also is the ego also will become less. Certainly. But that how to do it, you can't do it because your ego will is always there. But the more you do it, not for yourself, and you leave the result to the divine, that's a technique to be used. That's what he said. Okay?
And the third step is to get rid of the central egoism. The central egoism, a little bit, Dada.
He is
Central
leaving that
egoism.
for the third. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah. He is
What
leaving
is the central? What is the central egoism? That means
Yeah.
is it not our? It is not our desires of our desired soul, whatever the fruits of our desire is seeking, our desired soul is seeking.
See, if that is your interpretation, you follow it. I mean, I have nothing to say. But those steps are so clear. Huh? First step, second step, third step. Okay? The third step is very clearly central egoism has to be tackled only in the last. Okay? You can't tackle the egoism in the first. Not possible. It has to be done only at the third step, is to get rid of the central egoism. So, okay, central egoism means there's a non-central egoism. Maybe that's what you mean. That's in the desire soul. Naturally, you have to try. It doesn't mean to say that you don't do that. You try to reduce your own desires. That also is there. Okay? You try to reduce your own desires. Yeah. You read the whole system as one block. Don't pay attention only to one. And he's using very clearly central egoism. Central egoism, yeah, the central egoism is something much, much deeper than your vital egoism. The vital egoism is relatively easier to get rid of than the central egoism. The central egoism is that which makes you feel separate from everybody. Okay? That is central egoism.
Exactly. I understand.
Yeah.
Now I understand. Exactly. Separativeness.
Yeah.
Feeling that I am separate from the world.
That's right.
Okay.
Now, from the world and from everybody else. That is the central egoism. Okay? All right.
Okay.
We'll see you tomorrow for Life Divine.
Okay.
Au revoir. Au revoir. Merci beaucoup. Bonne journée.
Thank you, Ranganath.